Davante Adams wants to trade. The Raiders have informed the NFL that they are considering trading Davante Adams, and that's notable because the New Orleans Saints seems like a pretty obvious landing spot. There's 3 teams that I think make the most sense. I'll talk about that in this video. Let's react. This is ESPN. This is NFL Live. So let's go ahead and break it down.
Us right to this breaking news. Just now from Adam Schefter, ESPN sources, he says the Raiders have informed other teams that they would quote, consider trading wide receiver Davante Adams for a package that would include a second-round pick and additional compensation.
Yeah, so on Twitter, when this popped off, I said, makes sense. Saints Chiefs were the first 2 teams that come to mind, or Saints Jets. And then the Chiefs are an obvious landing spot as well. Chiefs would make the most sense for Adams as far as a player, like where he can go immediately, be the number 1 wide receiver with the number 1 quarterback on the number 1 team. He can chase the Super Bowl. It makes the most sense for him. Now, the Jets has Aaron Rodgers, right? And we know what him and Aaron Rodgers did in Green Bay. The Saints have Derek Carr. They have his best friend. Derek Carr calls him Tay, and you don't call somebody Tay unless you are truly best friends, okay? So this was another thing that was mentioned in my replies. People said, well, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a ton of stuff to get Davante Adams. Not so fast, my friend. So the wide receiver market isn't what you think it is. To get a top wide receiver, it doesn't take that much. Stephon Diggs is a good example. So Stephon Diggs isn't exactly Davante Adams, no doubt, but it's going to be a similar market. Stephon Diggs, it was a Buffalo sent Diggs, a 6th and a 5th for a 2nd. Okay, so before I saw any of the parameters, this is what I figured it would take, something like a 2nd. Okay, well then you see the tweet, and the tweet says that would include a 2nd-round pick and additional compensation. So they're right on it. Like they are right on the Stephon Diggs kind of level of trade. So if you're a Raiders fan and you're thinking you're going to get 2 first and you're going to get a young player, and you're not. I hate to tell you, you're not. You're going to get a 2nd-round pick. More than likely, it's going to be like a 2nd, a 5th, a 7th, some combination of that, a 2nd and a 7th, a 2nd and a 6th, somewhere in there. And it is what it is. Wide receivers just aren't what they aren't what they were as far as like a market thing goes. So if you're the Saints or the Chiefs or the Jets or other teams, obviously he could go anywhere, but that's what you have to figure out. Like, is it worth it? Do you have the horses? Do you have the 2nd? Do you have what it takes to get this trade done? And do you want to do it?
2nd-round pick, that seems like a no-brainer. All right, we're going to talk about this in just a second. But first, let's listen to Davante Adams. He was on the Up and Adams podcast recently, was asked about his future with the Raiders. Take a listen.
What I'm hearing is that here's what a lot of people think you may never play another down as a Raider. What would you say to that?
All I can control is this talk we're having right here, and then after we're done with this, all I can control is the next thing that I'm on to.
There you go.
All right, interesting.
It's always interesting too when you see players like Davante Adams right there wearing a Fresno State shirt instead of a Raiders shirt. Usually, whenever you see that kind of stuff, it means something. The Raiders, I'll say this for the Raiders, for Antonio Pierce being a player's coach, sure there's a lot of issues in the locker room.
Graz, is it possible Adams gets moved before the November 5th trade deadline?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely, especially if there's
absolutely.
motivation on his side, the team side, or both to actually do it. 2nd-round pick and other stuff is a fairly high price for a wide receiver that's going to turn 32 in December and is making almost $17 million this year. Teams don't like to part with draft picks that high. So he's a pure rental. He has 2 years left on his contract after this year, but his salaries in those years are over $35 million, non-guaranteed. He's not seeing that money. So this.
Right, so exactly. So it's a 1-year rental. I say 1 year. It's a rental. And don't get too lost in the salary cap. Like I say this all the time. When people are like, well, can the Saints afford it? Can the Chiefs afford it? Can the Jets afford it? Can the Commanders afford it? Every team can afford it. It's fugazi monopoly money. They'll figure it out. Okay, what you need to focus on are the picks. You need to focus on the package. All right, pause. So let's look at the picks. Let's take a look at what teams have. So let's look at, let's go through some of these teams and see, wait, what's going on here? Why am I looking at ads? Okay, there you go. So we've got Green Bay, Houston, Indy, Jacksonville. Okay, KC. KC has a second. They've got 2/3. All right, they got 2/7. So their package could include possibly, they could go a third. If they don't want to give up the second, I think you give up the second before you give up 2/3. So a second and a, but losing a second's not that big of a deal to them if they have the 2/3. So that's KC. The Raiders just have your standard picks, so they're not trying to like replace anything. If you look at the Saints, okay, so the Saints have a second, so they have what is being asked. The Jets have a second. They have 2/3. They have 2/6. So the Jets have the most draft capital, I would say, of any of these teams so far. If we look at some other teams that could possibly do it, the Commanders have 2/3, 3/7, a second as well. So some of these teams that are in play certainly have the horses. San Francisco, I've seen San Francisco getting tossed around. It just doesn't make sense to me. Not if they just pay. I don't think San Francisco's actually in consideration. I have seen that. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I've seen Baltimore thrown around. I've seen the Ravens thrown around. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. They have your standard pick, so they could do it as well if they wanted to. But I don't think the Ravens make a lot of sense.
This year he's making 16.89. If you trade for him now, you'd have to pay him around $14 million for the rest of the year and have that much cap space. That number will go down by about $968,000 each week. If you trade for him the week of the deadline, you probably end up having to pay him about $10 million for the rest of the year. So if that is the Raiders' price, then I think it's probably going to take a little while for the salary number to get to a point where teams are willing to part with something like that in order to bring him on.
That $10 million does sound about right. Like you do a 1-year rental, $10 million. So he said November 5th is the deadline. So you're talking about a month away. So you have this week's games. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 games. You have 5 games between here and now of trading for Adams.
Interesting.
And the reason I bring that up is because if you're the Saints, okay, if the Saints were 3-1, I think it's a no-brainer. It's like, well, we're 3-1. We may have a legit shot at this thing. Okay, like, all right, and it does line up really well with the Saints' timeline. It lines up really well with Carr's timeline. Lines up really well with their already core of Alvin Kamara, Demario Davis, Marshawn Lattimore. Like that team, that window, however you want to phrase it, is on the same trajectory as Adams. Now, a team like the Commanders, not so much, right? A team like the Commanders, do you want a 1-year rental for what, right? Like, as good as the Commanders are playing right now, they are not a win-now situation. They are if I'm the Commanders, I am in okay, guys, we've got something here. Let's develop what we have here. Let's not mess up our salary cap. Let's build organically while we have Jaden on his rookie contract over the next 3 or 4 years. And let's put pieces together. Our defense is absolute ass. We have a hot start, but I wouldn't do it if I was the Commanders. The Chiefs, absolutely. The Chiefs just lost Rashee Rice. They already were weak at wide receiver. We know what Patrick Mahomes can do. The Chiefs' offense has been lackluster, to say the least, this season. He makes a lot of sense for them. And the Chiefs are. Who cares about a second-round pick for the Chiefs, right? Like, you're going to be drafting, that's 29, 30, 31, 32. Like, it doesn't matter. So, a second, pay Adams for a year, see what Mahomes can do with him, makes a whole lot of sense. Now, the Jets, okay, now this is where why I mentioned the 5 games. The Saints and the Jets, if they are 500 at that point, if they're a game under 500, if they're whatever, you don't make this move. A winning team needs to make this move. A team that is prepared to make a push. If if the Jets are struggling and their offense still isn't doing anything, and or the Saints are kind of around 500 or whatever, you probably don't do this. So for those teams, if you are a Jets fan, if you are a Saints fan, if you are whatever fan, you need your team to be in contention around that deadline for them to want to make this move. Because you don't trade for Adams to just have like a lackluster season. You are trading for him to go make a playoff push and try and win your conference or win a Super Bowl.
Okay, Gruz, thanks for the news. Dan, you think this is a no-brainer? You think that's a good price for Davante Adams, a second-round pick, and maybe additional compensation?
If I'm Joe Douglas, I can't get off the phone.
He's the GM for the Jets.
I get this done now. I get this done. Jets, go get Odell Beckham. That's what this is. That's what I envision this is, of being a couple years ago when the Rams went and traded for OBJ. Go.
Okay, what I would say to Dan in this situation is that is that the issue right now with the Jets? Is a wide receiver the problem? Because right now, Aaron Rodgers can't utilize Garrett Wilson. Right now, Breece Hall is doing nothing. There's so many problems in New York. Is getting Davante Adams going to solve all those problems? You're already in a super weird situation with Salah and Rodgers, who's running the team. You know, the team right now is kind of in a tailspin. They're on the way to London to play the Vikings. Who knows how that's going to go? So it seems like a good fit for the Jets, but if you take away what's actually happening on the field, preseason, this sounds great. But preseason, we thought the Jets were going to be a Super Bowl team. I have a ticket for them to win the AFC. That team is garbage right now. That team is terrible. Hey, Aaron Rodgers, instead of worrying about Davante Adams, why don't you worry about getting Garrett Wilson involved? Why don't you worry about Breece Hall getting involved? Why don't you worry about that defense getting figured out? You know, so if I'm running the Jets, I'm thinking I'm not going to buy brand new seats on a sinking ship. Okay, so the Jets sound cool, but
go get your Odell Beckham and kind of take that next step. I remember when they got OBJ, I said, well, the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl, and they did. Go get them. This is an easy decision for the New York Jets. If you watch that team play this past weekend against teams that could lock up and play man, they struggled. The weather was part of it. Go get Davante Adams. 100% easy.
I mean, I like the price. We should get him here at NFL Live because I think we could cover it. Look,
I think I can afford that.
When you're past the age of 30 as a wide receiver in the National Football League, it is routine that they start to diminish what your value is. And my advice to the GMs out there that need a number one receiver, do not trust the chart, trust your eyes.
Yes.
Because if you look at the beginning part of this season, it is very clear that Davante Adams is still the same Davante Adams.
See, now, it like I said, it's really dependent on that schedule, and it's really dependent on that record. But I think this makes a ton of sense for the Saints. I really do. Because we looked at it yesterday. If you missed the video, go check it out. The Saints' EPA numbers are top 5 offense, top 5 defense. They're better than their record shows. You're a team that, with the current makeup of the roster, your window is closing. Is Derek Carr's best friend. You are already shallow at receiver. Rashid Shaheed, as of right now, isn't the 2 you want. Having Adams as the 1 or the 2 and Olave the 1 or the 2 can push Shaheed more to that speed role that he probably needs to be in. Gets Olave less coverage on him, less attention on him. I mean, just with the way that offense is, it needs more weapons. It's too dependent right now, I think, on Kamara, Olave, and Taysom. Having another weapon that all of a sudden it could be reliant on, where now you got to stop Taysom, Kamara, Olave, Adams. It's legit, like real legit. And all of a sudden now the Saints go from whatever playmakers to one of those rooms where you got to look back and say, okay, is this a top 5 group of playmakers? With the way Alvin Kamara's playing, with the way Chris Olave's playing, you throw Davante Adams in there and you have Taysom Hill. Not a lot of teams in the league can compete with that. Certainly not in the NFC South. If you think Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts is better than Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Davante Adams, Taysom Hill, LOL. Okay? So, I think the Saints and the Chiefs make the most sense. Chiefs, so obvious. I don't have to explain that. And now it's a question of Adams, right? It's a question for Davante. What does he want? Does he want to go win somewhere? Because if you want to go win somewhere, there's nothing more guaranteed than Kansas City. You'll be in the playoffs. You'll probably be in a conference championship. Hell, you might be in the Super Bowl. There is no guarantee the Saints will be in the playoffs. There is no guarantee the Jets will be in the playoffs. Out of those 2 teams right now, I'd be much more comfortable saying the Saints. Do you have more faith in the Jets somehow jumping the Bills to win the AFC East, or do you have more faith in the Saints winning the NFC South? You know, you could also factor in the idea of playing indoors. I mean, you know, I don't know how he feels personally about Carr versus Rodgers, but a lot happened. Okay. So those three teams really stand out to me. Really, really stand out. And the Chiefs are a weird one because the Chiefs routinely are the team that's like, we're not going to do this. They let Tyreek Hill walk, right? They're the team that doesn't kind of overreach for these stars, but given their situation, given their lack of production at the wide receiver role, especially the lack of production Travis Kelce's been bringing the Chiefs, I think it might be time for them to take a look at it.
He is such a technician that absolutely he has the kind of game that sustains over well beyond the typical time of a wide receiver in the National Football League.
One quick point of clarification. I'm not poking holes here, but the one difference with Odell Beckham Jr. was he was a free agent. He was cut, that whole thing. So it's a little different than what we're talking about here.
It's totally different. I mean, he's a totally different player too. Like, I mean, I don't want to hate on Odell, but Odell is not the reason the Rams won the Super Bowl.
No, I'm just putting the
player
facts
acquisition.
out there. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
I like the Jets idea. I like the Commanders as well.
Sure.
You talk about a team that's trending forward, a veteran presence in the wide receiver room. Now that conversation is.
See, I think the Commander thing is a mistake because the Commanders are rolling right now. They are rolling right now. They are young. That's first year in Washington head coach, first year in Washington offensive coordinator, young quarterback, obviously rookie quarterback. Why rush it? Why bring in an older star who has a totally different philosophy for the team? The Commanders' philosophy should be, let's take this slow, let's build organically, and let's build to win. Adams' philosophy is, I want to win now, I want to be the superstar now. So then all of a sudden what you would do to Jaden Daniels is, hey, we know you've been playing really well, spreading the ball around, running and doing what you want. Okay, now you got to get Davante Adams the ball 10 times a game. Because that's why you're bringing him in. And that's why he's signing. So all of a sudden now you're putting this pressure on this rookie quarterback to all the stuff that he's done successfully up to this point. Oh, here's a wrinkle we're going to throw into it. I'm not saying it would hamper his development. I'm just saying why mess up a good thing if you're Washington, right? You've punted once in 3 games. Okay, so I wouldn't touch it if I was Washington. And it's nothing against Adams. I think Davante Adams is awesome. I just would not make the trade for like Stephon Diggs. If we were in the offseason situation where Diggs is being traded, I wouldn't say Washington needs to go get him. I would just say chill, build through the draft, get young, get a nice young core, do what you got to do, see how it goes this year. I mean, you don't know this thing could fall off. Again, their defense is absolutely terrible. So do you really believe the Commanders can compete? I do not. Just from what I've seen. Their offense is sweet. It's been sweet. Played some really bad defenses, but the defense is terrible. Okay, so I'd take Washington off the list. Washington is a very knee-jerk reaction kind of thing. Very knee-jerk reaction. I'm surprised no one said Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota doesn't technically need a wide receiver, but with the way that KOC has the offense going and Darnold's playing and Minnesota's hot, Minnesota right now is like, hey, we can compete. The offense is playing really good. The defense is playing good against really good teams. All of a sudden you bring Adams in. That's kind of wild. Okay. So I'm kind of surprised no one's. I would say Minnesota makes more sense than Washington.
It's going to be revolve around what does Davante want his impact to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if you go to Washington Commanders, you're going to accentuate their number one wide receiver in Terry McLaurin, and you got to be willing to do that. Now, when I think about Davante, and you think about the career that he's had, he's absolutely going to want to go to a place that can win. Right?
Yes, he's absolutely going to want to go to a place that can win. He's going to absolutely want to go to a place, I think, with a proven quarterback. If I'm Davante Adams, I am done playing with the Gardner Minshews, the Aiden O'Connells. I'm done playing with these guys. Get me to a guy who I know is a good quarterback. Get me to a team, an organization that I know is offensive-oriented. I don't want to play for Antonio Pierce, a style like that. I don't want to do that, right? So that's what I assume he's going to want. Now, does he – you've got winning. You've got pure winning. You've got stats and winning. And then you just got stats. Those are like the 3 big bubbles. I don't know what he wants. I don't know what he's prioritizing. I don't know if he's prioritizing just winning. I don't know if he's prioritizing a little bit of both. Or if he just wants to go somewhere where he's got a good quarterback, good offense, and he can ball.
Right, to your point, the time is ticking down.
Sure.
The other thing is I want everybody to remember this Raiders situation and why we probably got here today. He went to Las Vegas for Derek Carr.
Correct.
And that's been the issue since they traded Derek Carr away. They've been in quarterback purgatory trying to figure out the direction of this organization.
Throw the Saints in the mix as well?
I would throw the Saints in the absolutely. I would throw the Saints in the mix.
I got another
With
one
Clint
for you.
Kubiak for sure.
The Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, that was number
they
2 on
will
my
beat
That's a great
the
one.
Kansas City Chiefs.
See, the Ravens, but like if you're Davante Adams, okay, why wouldn't you just go to the Chiefs? Because if you're going to the Ravens, how many passes is he going to catch a game? That team just runs the football. So, I mean, you're going to go to a team in the AFC that doesn't throw the ball that much, that you're going to go head up against the Chiefs. He's been in Vegas. He knows how that goes. Why wouldn't you just go to the Chiefs? If you could go to Baltimore and be in that offense, or go to Kansas City and be the one, why wouldn't you go to Kansas City? I don't think Baltimore makes a lot of sense either.
If they
For Adams, I think it makes sense for Baltimore. I mean, yeah, you just get another piece, get another weapon, but I don't know if it makes sense for Davante.
If they get Davante.
That will give them the firepower to climb Mount Patrick Mahomes with that. Because look, their running game over the last 2 weeks has probably been the best that we've seen. And that's saying something.
That's what they are.
But when you look at them at the wide receiver position, Zay Flowers is a beast, and he's going to continue to be a beast. But he is still learning what it looks
Not a beast.
like as wide receiver.
It's crazy how everybody's a beast. Like, everybody's good, everybody's got a bright future, everybody's a beast. A lot of these guys are just average players.
System winner.
Their number 1 receiver right now is Isaiah Likely, and number 2 is Hill, right? With Davante Adams, it forces single coverage, and you probably get more production out of Zay Flowers with Davante Adams on one side.
How many times we've been like, can the Ravens just get a true number 1? This would be that. Graz, you have another team for us. Go ahead.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, this was a team that was incredibly active in the Brandon Ayuk trade market.
If I was Davante Adams, I would absolutely scratch that one off. If I'm sitting here with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, and they're like, hey, we're going to trade you to Pittsburgh with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, absolutely not. Now, granted, I don't think it's a no trade clause. Someone in Vegas might correct me there. I'm pretty sure he doesn't, but I'd be real. There is no way would I sign up to go play in the same division as the Bengals, the Ravens, the Browns, in that weather with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. No way. No way. That's going from the Raiders to the Raiders. No way. That'd be, I mean, again, if he doesn't have no trade clause, then it is what it is. But I would be not happy if that's what happened.
Back when that was the thing during training camp, they start out 3-1. I like what they have at quarterback and Justin Fields right now. They like their young offensive line. They need more at wide receiver. I would not be surprised to see them in this mix. They are one of those teams, though, that unless they find some other way to make cap room, would have to wait till closer to the deadline to do it.
Yeah, there's 5 teams. I think the Jets are the clear team. I think the Jets can win a Super Bowl. I think this...
Brother, what are you talking about? I'm right there with you. Again, huge ticket on them to win the AFC. They just lost 10-9 to Bo Nix, who threw for 70 yards. Bo Nix didn't throw a pass past the line of scrimmage for 3 quarters. It ain't a Davante Adams problem with the Jets. Okay.
Puts the Jets as the favorite in the AFC East if they get Davante Adams.
Brother, getting Davante Adams, you think all of a sudden that makes them better than Buffalo?
Baltimore was the second team I thought. Pittsburgh. I like Washington and Dallas. Here's the thing.
What are you talking about, Dan? What is his 5? Baltimore, Pittsburgh, the Jets, Dallas. Who else did he say? This guy's lost.
You just threw Dallas in there kind of.
Yeah, I don't think any AFC West
Right.
team, all you people saying the Chiefs, it's not going to happen. They're not going to trade him in the division.
In division.
I think the interesting thing with Jets, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, if you're those organizations, you're probably going to be a good football team this year. Your draft pick, if it's a second-round pick, is going to be...
The in-division thing is so funny to me because it sounds cool, but then when you think about it, it's like the Raiders are trading their best player. You think they're concerned about like, oh, well, we don't want the Chiefs to get too good. They've won back-to-back Super Bowls. we can't trade Davante Adams to the Chiefs. What if they win the division? Listen, pal, they're going to win the division, okay? It doesn't matter. Like, you're trading Davante Adams. Obviously, you're waving the white flag. Obviously, you're not concerned about this season. The Chiefs have done whatever they've wanted. They are back-to-back Super Bowl champions. They have won the division however many times in a row. Like, if they have what you want, if they have the pieces that you want to get back, I don't think there's a conversation of like, well, can't go in the division.
Be somewhere in the 50s next year. You're going to tell me you won't give up the 50th pick for Davante Adams when you know
to go get a Lombardi.
When you know he puts you significantly closer to the trophy.
If I'm Davante, I'm going to Baltimore.
Go to Baltimore.
Like, if I'm him, I'm going to Baltimore.
Didn't years ago, wasn't that Anquan Bolden?
That was Anquan. But think about the history they have with veteran wide receivers. Steve Smith went there. OBJ, you talk about Anquan.
Yeah, that worked out well.
But also, to your point, Hawk, like, if you at this point in your career, if you Davante, a Super Bowl is real.
But here's the pushback to that. If you're Davante, do you want to go to a team that you, or at least offense, believe is run-centric?
That's exactly what I said. I mean, these guys are so far behind, it's not even funny. But yeah, if you go to if you're Davante, it's like, I'm going to go to Baltimore. I'm going to a team where I'm going to get 4 to 6 catches a game. Like, I'm not going to be in this like high-powered offense. I'm not going to be in this, this kind of scheme. Is that a problem? Which I wouldn't blame him if it was.
Or do you want to go play with Aaron Rodgers?
Because that cover 2 don't work versus
You mentioned that if he went to the Commanders, he'd have to contend with the fact that Terry McLaurin is the number one wideout. What about Garrett Wilson?
No, Davante Adams is the number 1 wide receiver if he goes to the Jets.
No doubt. We have
number 1 wide receiver.
He's the number 1 guy if he go to.
I think he's the number 1 guy if he go wherever he goes. Now, what does that really mean? Not much.
Baltimore too.
I think he's the number 1 guy if he goes anywhere, including the Commanders.
Like your point. Go watch the Ravens from 2 weeks ago.
On the field standpoint, I mean, McLaurin got his bag, so I'm thinking about the business element of it. But yeah, he's the number 1 guy wherever you go.
Yeah, if you're defending.
I mean, the business element. If you're trading a second-round pick and bringing this guy in and paying him $10 million for a prorated season, I mean, there's a business element into this as well.
And then who are you putting the
quickly on the Cowboys? Stan threw that out.
They're not close.
Not even in the realm of possibility. I mean, these guys, it took them 99.9% of the offseason to sign CeeDee Lamb, to sign Dak Prescott, to do all that. You think they're going to go trade for Davante Adams? Hell no.
Enough.
Right.
They're not close enough. And he knows that. You got a coach that might not be there. You got a team.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You're going to get Mike McCarthy. Like, the Dallas is way down on the list.
That's going to have to restructure.
I don't disagree with that. They need him, though. I don't disagree with your point. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they need him.
You had him in the top 5, Dan, so you better wake up.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. They need him, but
every team needs him.
I think for him personally, they too far away. And there's too many unknowns for him to step into.
He's going to want some ownership in this. We'll keep an eye on it either way. That's really fun to think about. All right. Woo.
Baltimore.
I think you got 3. Like I said, I think the 3 ones that make the most sense and kind of tick a lot of boxes in no order are Chiefs, Saints, Jets. I'd be kind of surprised if it wasn't one of those 3 teams. I mean, I would guess that those would be the top 3 on Davante's list. And those are 3 teams that I think have the assets and are willing to part with the assets to do this. It's exciting because all 3 of those teams, if you wake up and you get the push notification that Davante Adams was traded to your team, congratulations, you're a contender. Saints, Chiefs, Jets, you just got way better. Now, for the Jets and for the Saints, will it materialize into a Super Bowl, playoff appearance? Who knows? But you did get better. And what it also tells you as a fan, your team's going for it. And man, that's the best thing. That's the best feeling in the world for a fan. If I wake up tomorrow and I see Saints trading Paulson Adebo and a 3rd to the Raiders, hey, Mickey Loomis, next drink's on me, pal. All right, get on the comments below, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know where you think he's going. Hey, by the way, I know we're 30 minutes in this video, but we hit 10,000 subscribers today. We're going to do a 10,000 subscriber celebration live stream. We're going to stream the Chiefs-Saints Monday Night Football game, the entire game, start to finish. We're going to do giveaways during the stream, jersey type situation, hats, whatever. We're going to figure all that stuff out. Stay tuned to the channel for more information this week. But big ups, big thank you for 10,000 subs. Unbelievable whirlwind. We're already 30 minutes in, so I'm not going to get too far into it, but unbelievable. I cannot even fathom. It's been nuts. But we'll talk about it more on videos this week. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.